If you really pay attention the next time you walk into a traditional, like, high-end jewelry boutique, you'll notice this immediate, palpable shift in the
Oh,
atmosphere.
absolutely. It's highly orchestrated.
Right. The heavy front door closes behind you, and the street noise just totally vanishes.
Yeah, you have the quiet hum of the air conditioning, those thick glass display cases that literally separate you from the product, and usually a security guard suddenly watching the floor.
Exactly. And when you finally ask to see something, the velvet trays are pulled out one at a time, very deliberately. It's this environment engineered for absolute control.
And crucially, for projecting undeniable trust to the buyer. You're surrounded by all these physical cues that are basically whispering, this item is incredibly valuable, and we take protecting that value very seriously.
Right. But then, and we're so glad you're here sitting in on this conversation with us today, you look at e-commerce today, and you can spin up a digital storefront in a single afternoon.
Oh yeah, just pick a sleek website theme and you're off.
Exactly. And suddenly, you are supposed to project that exact same velvet tray trust to a total stranger on the internet. And frankly, if you try to use the standard e-commerce playbook for this, it completely falls apart,
It really does.
which is exactly what we are getting into today. Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are exploring a fascinating operational playbook we found titled How to Start a Jewelry Store on Shopify.
It's a great read.
It is. Our mission for this deep dive is to explore the hidden physics of high-ticket e-commerce, because selling a $2,000 ring to someone across the country isn't anything like selling a $25 graphic t-shirt.
No, the stakes are just entirely different. I mean, the mechanics of a business have to change when the product you're putting into a standard cardboard box is worth more than most people's monthly rent.
Okay, let's unpack this. E-commerce platforms make it incredibly, almost dangerously easy to launch a store right now.
Right.
But those basic tutorials skip over the crucial operational details that determine whether a high-ticket business actually survives its first year. I'm talking about things like preventing a single fraudulent chargeback from just wiping out your entire month of profit.
What's fascinating here is how average order value, or AOV, is the ultimate
Massive.
double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yeah, when we look at the benchmark data and the sources, luxury and jewelry see the highest AOV across the board. The baseline sits well above $300,
Wow.
and for fine pieces, it routinely soars into the thousands. Now, for a business owner, that high value is an amazing opportunity, right? One single sale can equal a week's revenue for a standard merchandise store.
Right, which sounds great.
But that exact same high price tag acts as a massive magnet for loss, for highly sophisticated fraud, and for immense consumer skepticism.
Which makes total sense. I mean, if I'm buying a cheap phone case online, I barely look at the reviews.
Exactly.
But if I'm buying a diamond ring, I am interrogating every single pixel of that website.
Oh, for sure.
But before a jeweler even has the luxury of worrying about fraud or shipping, they have to actually list that $2,000 item on their digital display case. And this is where we start seeing standard e-commerce structures just instantly break down.
Yeah, we have to move from the concept of high AOV to the actual mechanics of displaying that value online.
Right.
If you think about how e-commerce platforms organize products, they use something called a variant matrix. You have a core product, it has options attached to it.
Like size or color.
Exactly. But platforms like Shopify have hard limits built into their architecture. For instance, a single product only supports up to 3 options.
So that might be metal type, wing size, and center stone shape.
Yep. And there is a hard maximum of 2,048 total variants per product.
Honestly, 2,000 variants sounds like a massive number until you actually sit down and do the math for jewelry.
Oh, it goes fast.
Right, because if you have just one ring design, but you offer in 3 different gold carats, across 12 different ring sizes, and with 4 different gemstone shapes, you are already multiplying your way right up toward that ceiling.
You really are.
Trying to use a standard e-commerce variant system for a bespoke engagement ring feels like trying to order a custom-tailored suit using only small, medium, or large drop-down menus. It completely fails to capture the nuance.
That is a perfect analogy. And when you get into truly custom work, it breaks down completely. Say a customer wants to engrave a special date or add a custom monogram to a pendant.
You can't use standard variants for infinite text combinations.
Exactly. So jewelers have to use what are called line item properties.
Wait, how does that actually differ from a variant?
So a variant is a pre-existing version of a product that lives in your inventory. A line item property is essentially a blank custom text box that attaches specific information directly to the customer's cart at checkout. It allows for infinite customization without breaking the inventory system. And the playbook notes a really clever trick.
What's that?
If a jeweler starts the back-end property name with an underscore, it hides that specific technical field from the customer's receipt, keeping the final invoice looking clean and high-end.
Oh, that's smart. Okay, that makes sense for engravings.
Eh,
But I want to push back on another technical point the playbook brings up.
Go for it.
When it comes to the actual specifications of fine gems, like the GIA or IGI certificates, the exact carat weights, the unique serial numbers, the playbook states these absolutely must be stored as meta fields on the product record.
Yes.
Isn't it overkill to build all these custom data fields? Can't you just put the certificate number in the product description box?
It might seem like unnecessary back-end work, but you have to remember the psychology of the buyer. Imagine you are sitting on your couch, deciding whether to wire 4 figures to a website you discovered an hour ago.
Yeah, that's stressful.
You need to see structured, verifiable data right next to the buy button to feel safe. If you bury a GIA certificate number in a giant block of marketing text, it just doesn't read as authoritative.
So what exactly is a meta field doing differently?
Think of a meta field as a custom hidden filing cabinet attached directly to your product page. Instead of dumping everything into one messy description box, the meta field neatly stores the lab report number in one folder, the exact carat weight in another, and the serial number in a third.
Oh, I get it.
Then your website theme can pull those specific pieces of data out of the filing cabinet and display them cleanly on the page, like a professional dashboard. It turns a standard product listing into a structured, authoritative document.
Okay, I see. It's creating that digital velvet tray. It feels organized and deliberate,
Exactly.
which leads us perfectly into how you legally and visually communicate an item's worth. Because in the jewelry business, trust isn't just a marketing vibe. It is strictly regulated by the government and visually demanded by the consumer.
Yeah, let's talk about building this trust stack.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I always assumed terms like gold-plated or vermeil were just stylistic marketing choices. Like vermeil just sounds like French for fancy gold, right?
Not according to the federal government.
Really?
Yeah, the Federal Trade Commission, specifically the FTC Jewelry Guides under Title 16, Part 23, is incredibly strict about this. Your product listings are marketing, yes, but they're also regulated claims.
Wow.
Choosing the wrong word isn't just a stylistic error. It can actually be a federal deceptive practice violation if your jewelry is missing just a few microscopic layers of thickness.
Wait, microscopic. How precise are we talking here?
Extremely precise. To legally use the term vermeil in the United States, the piece must have a sterling silver base. It must be plated on all significant surfaces with gold that is at least 10 carats, and that plating must be a minimum of 2.5 microns thick.
Wait, really? If it's 2.4 microns, it's illegal to call it vermeil.
Technically, yes. You are misleading the consumer about the intrinsic value of the piece.
That is wild.
And the rules are just as strict for gold-filled, which has to be a mechanically bonded layer of gold that makes up at least 1/20th of the item's total metal weight.
So you really got to know your specs.
Even lab-grown diamonds are heavily regulated. You can't just call it a diamond. You can't just slap the word "so" on it.
Oh, you can't.
No, you have to use equal conspicuousness wording, meaning the font has to be the exact same size and visibility, using terms like laboratory-grown or laboratory-created. The consumer cannot be misled for even a fraction of a second.
So the FTC essentially acts as a digital bouncer, making sure your legal trust is airtight.
Exactly.
But then there is the visual trust. You mentioned the psychology of the buyer earlier. High-value items absolutely require photo reviews. Like, you need to see that ring on a real human hand to believe it's legitimate.
Yeah.
Apps like Judge.me or Looks become essential to gather and display those customer photos. But the playbook also highlights 3D and augmented reality, which sounds very futuristic for an industry based on ancient metals.
It does. But this raises an important question. How do consumers verify these high-ticket claims from their living room?
Right.
Flat, 2D photos often leave visual questions unanswered. How high does the stone sit off the finger? What does the setting look like from underneath?
Yeah, it's hard to tell from a static image.
This is why 3D and AR are deployed, though selectively. You don't need a 3D model for a simple pair of gold stud earrings. But for a complex engagement ring, AR removes the hesitation of a blind online purchase.
The playbook mentions getting these made is actually pretty accessible. You can hire someone on a site like Fiverr to create a 3D model for roughly $65 to $180.
Yeah, it's not crazy expensive.
And it specifically mentions needing GLB and USDZ formats. For anyone listening who isn't a 3D animator, what do those letters actually mean?
It's simpler than it sounds. GLB and USDZ are just the standard 3D file formats required by mobile devices. USDZ is the format Apple uses for iPhones and iPads, and GLB is what Android devices use.
Okay, got it.
And Shopify supports these files up to 500 megabytes.
Mm-hmm.
By having both, you ensure that no matter what phone the customer is holding, they can virtually place that ring on their kitchen table and inspect it from every angle.
It bridges that gap between the digital screen and the physical object. So you build the legal trust with the FTC rules, you build the visual trust with AR and customer photos. But how do you bridge all that trust into actual marketing? How do you get eyes on the product to begin with?
That's where the visual discovery engines come in.
Yeah.
The playbook specifically calls out Pinterest's Predicts report.
Yes, I saw this. Apparently, Pinterest claims their annual trend report has an 88% accuracy rate over the last 6 years because they're tracking what millions of users are visually searching for months before they actually buy anything.
Get a huge advantage.
Right. So for 2026, the playbook notes jewelers are capitalizing on upcoming trends like broached, which focuses on vintage pins and heirloom brooches and bug jewelry.
Exactly. The flow of e-commerce goes from discovery to verification. You use data back to visual trends, like Pinterest, to start the conversation and get them in the door. Then you use your 3D models and your airtight FTC descriptions to close the sale.
Okay, so let's say it worked. You've correctly labeled your vermeil ring down to the micron. You used Pinterest trends to get a buyer to your site. They loved the AR model, and they clicked buy.
Success, right.
Right, but did you actually make any money? We have to pivot here from the outward-facing trust to the inward-facing economics, because unlike selling an electronics gadget or a printed hoodie, the core material of jewelry is a highly volatile commodity.
The moving target of metal prices.
Yeah.
The raw material holds intrinsic, globally traded value, and that completely shifts the economic reality for the store owner.
I always just assumed retail was about setting a price, putting a sticker on it, and forgetting it until a seasonal sale. Just set it and forget it.
You can do that with a t-shirt because the cost of cotton doesn't fluctuate wildly enough to ruin your margin. But if you try that set it and forget it approach with fine jewelry, your profit margins will quietly evaporate through a process called margin erosion.
Give us an analogy for margin erosion. What does that actually feel like for a business owner?
Imagine you agree to build and sell a house for someone next year, but you lock in the price you were charging them based on what bricks cost a decade ago.
Oh, no.
Right. If the price of bricks suddenly doubles before you start building, you are going to go bankrupt trying to finish that house. The same thing happens to jewelers.
And the numbers and the sources back this up aggressively. What did the gold prices look like in the data we reviewed?
It's a stark climb. According to the playbook's tracking, there was a 23% rise in gold prices in 2024.
Wow.
That was followed by a massive 44% rise in 2025, bringing the average up to $3,431 per troy ounce.
That's a huge jump.
And by the fourth quarter of 2025, it peaked at $4,135 per troy ounce.
That is terrifying for a small business owner. If you set a fixed sticker price on a gold ring a year ago based on last year's gold prices, and you are still selling it at that exact same price today, you might literally be selling the physical metal at a loss.
Exactly.
The gold in the ring is worth more melted down than the price you're charging the customer. So how do you survive that without updating the prices on your entire website every 20 minutes?
The playbook outlines a few structural solutions to insulate the business. First, you date stamp your stock items in your back-end inventory with the exact date they were last priced. That way, you instantly know what margin you're actually working with.
That makes sense.
Second, you build in price buffers to absorb small market fluctuations. And third, for custom pieces, you never quote a flat historical rate. You quote custom pieces based strictly on the current daily metal cost, and you take a deposit immediately.
Oh, so you lock it in.
Exactly. For example, taking a $1,500 down payment on a $3,000 custom ring before work even begins, locking in the materials with the balance due on completion.
Okay, so you've navigated the commodities market. You've priced the ring correctly for today's gold prices. You took the deposit, and the customer paid the balance. Now comes what honestly feels like the most dangerous part of the entire transaction.
Oh yeah, getting it to them.
Right, getting a highly liquid, highly valuable physical asset across the country without being robbed by thieves or scammed by fraudsters, it is an absolute gauntlet.
It is the ultimate vulnerability for e-commerce. A single lost $2,000 ring is a business-ending event for a new store. Every single shipment needs coverage matched exactly to its value.
I imagine shipping a $2,000 wing must cost an absolute fortune in insurance, right? It just sounds like a massive overhead cost.
Surprisingly, it's not.
Really?
Yeah, if we look at the insured shipping tiers, Shopify shipping, which is administered via ShipSurance, includes up to $200 of free insurance for eligible plans. And you can buy coverage up to a $5,000 maximum.
Okay, so what does that actually cost?
The math is roughly $0.89 per $100 of domestic coverage. So if we take a $2,300 ring, it only costs $20.47 to fully insure it.
Wait, that's it?
Yeah, that is less than 1% of the total order value to completely remove a catastrophic risk.
That is incredibly cheap peace of mind. But you mentioned a $5,000 limit. Fine jewelry routinely exceeds that ceiling. What happens when someone buys a $10,000 piece? You can't exactly drop that in a blue mailbox and hope for the best.
No, absolutely not. For items over $5,000, you have to move to specialty routes.
Like what?
The playbook recommends USPS registered mail, which insures up to $50,000, or FedEx declared value advantage, which can cover up to $100,000 domestically on a business contract. You can also use third-party options like Easy Ship or purpose-built insurers like Jewelers Mutual.
Why is USPS registered mail so specifically recommended for high-value items? I think people tend to associate the post office with lost birthday cards, not securing diamonds.
It all comes down to the chain of custody. Registered mail is historically the most secure mail class because the package is literally kept under lock and key at every single transit point.
Oh.
Yeah, it is placed in a locked cage, and every postal worker who touches it has to sign for it. It leaves a permanent, undeniable paper trail of accountability.
That makes total sense.
But you do have to be careful with default carrier insurance. The playbook notes that standard USPS insurance, not registered, just standard, has a reported cap of just $500 specifically for jewelry.
Ouch.
And UPS caps jewelry at $2,500 for most destinations. If you don't read the fine print, you might think you're covered for 10 grand when you are absolutely not.
And beyond the insurance caps, the carriers have strict shipping rules you have to follow, or you void whatever insurance you did buy, right?
Correct. The most critical rule is that plain, unbranded, contents-neutral packaging is completely mandatory.
Which feels counterintuitive, like every e-commerce guru tells you to brand your unboxing experience. Why can't I put my logo on the shipping box?
Because organized retail crime rings monitor shipping hubs. If you ship a box with Luxury Diamond Co. plastered on the side, you are essentially advertising to syndicates, and the insurance company will simply deny your claim if it gets stolen.
Wow, okay.
Additionally, anything over $1,000 requires signature confirmation upon delivery.
So to ship a ring safely, you have to operate with a staggering level of operational paranoia. And unfortunately, it doesn't stop with the mail carrier, because sometimes the threat isn't a thief stealing the box off a porch, it's the person who bought the ring in the first place. High-ticket fraud.
Yes. High order values inevitably attract fraudulent orders and chargebacks. A chargeback on a $3,000 order is a brutal, often fatal loss for a small business.
I can imagine.
Now, Shopify does offer Shopify Protect, which covers fraudulent Shop Pay chargebacks for U.S. stores, provided you follow their strict rules. The physical order must be fulfilled with tracking within 7 days and be in transit within 10 days.
But then there is the most devious tactic, which the playbook calls return switch-out fraud. What does this look like in the real world?
Imagine a buyer receives the real diamond ring. They initiate a standard return, print the label, and send the box back. But instead of the diamond, they send back an empty box. Or worse, a cheap tungsten replica that weighs exactly the same amount.
Oh, that's terrible.
The post office confirms the package was delivered back to you, the buyer demands their refund, and you are left with a fake ring.
That is horrifying. And the playbook's mitigation for this, using tamper evidence seals and actually filming the unboxing of every single high-value return? So what does this all mean? I have to be honest, filming yourself opening a return box sounds intensely paranoid.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it sounds paranoid until it saves your business.
Right.
If we look at the mechanics of payment processors like Stripe or PayPal, they are generally heavily biased toward the consumer. If it's your word against the buyer usually wins the chargeback. But an unboxing video completely flips the script
How so? What makes the video so powerful?
because it acts as an airtight digital alibi. When a dispute happens and a customer claims they sent the authentic ring back, you provide an uncut, continuous video of yourself breaking the tamper-evident carrier seal, opening the box, and finding it empty.
Ah, I see.
Payment processors treat that continuous video evidence as undeniable proof. It immediately settles the dispute in the merchant's favor. It acts as a physical firewall against chargeback fraud. It's a cheap, simple operational habit that solves an incredibly complex problem.
It is just wild to think about the behind-the-scenes reality of this industry.
Okay.
As we wrap up this deep dive, the main takeaway for you, the listener, is clear. Building a high-ticket jewelry store on a platform like Shopify is entirely possible today.
Absolutely.
You don't need million-dollar enterprise software to do it, but it demands extreme operational discipline. You absolutely must insure by the exact value, screen every single order, legally label your metals down to the micron, and make your trust highly, highly visible.
I think it completely shifts our perspective on what this business actually is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we tend to think of online jewelers as craftspeople or curators with a great eye for design and aesthetics.
Sure.
But when you look at the sheer volume of structured data required, the multi-layered security, the unboxing footage, the 3D augmented reality modeling, and the constant commodity tracking. Wait, and all the tracking they have to do, a successful high-ticket online jeweler today is actually running a high-security data forensics and logistics company. It just happens to sell pretty stones.
A high-security data forensics company. It really brings us right back to where we started. You might not have the heavy glass doors and the physical security guards standing by the velvet trays in an online store. But to survive, you essentially have to build the exact digital equivalent. The velvet tray just became a tamper-evident seal and a 3D model on your iPhone. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the hidden systems behind the storefronts, and we'll catch you next time.